This is Parker Hesse. This is Sam Branks. You have the pleasure of listening to Hawkeyes and Tallboys. Cheers, motherfuckers.
Welcome to the Hawkeyes and Tallboys podcast, featuring your hosts, Bo Freeborn.
You know, guys, even though we get 2 conference losses, we're still going to end up 9-3. We're going to win the West for sure.
Dylan Pond.
Here's the thing, fellas. I'm going with it. 12-0, baby. We're gonna do it. Let's fucking go. Woo!
And Rob Wall.
I mean, that would be shocking. But we can do it. I mean, I think we can.
So crack a tall boy and go Hawks.
Okay. Welcome in to another amazing episode of Hawkeyes and Tallboys. I'm your host, Rob Wall. I'm joined here with Bo Freeborn and, as always, Dylan Pond. How we doing today, guys?
Doing well, dude. Doing great, man. Doing great. Ready to crack open a beer. I'm getting a little thirsty myself.
Yeah, after however many times we needed to start the recording over before we got into this episode, guys, I'm ready to crack one open too. But first, we have to introduce our special guest. He's a sports anchor from ABC affiliate in Reno, Nevada. Please welcome Kurt Schroeder.
Welcome, you guys having me on.
Cheers, guys.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming on.
Get through it. Sober.
What's your usual beer choice?
I'm in the Seattle area, so I'll take anything from Elysian Brewing. I'm not too picky though. I'll have just about anything.
Well, as long as we are drinking here, I'm actually drinking the local Vermont beer. This is the Green State Lager out of it's a Pilsner out of Vermont. But guys, we need to get into this amazing episode. So obviously, if you're just joining us from the most recent episode, obviously we had a reaction video to the Hawkeyes' recent loss to Iowa State, and the Hawkeye world in general, you guys, after looking at the press conference, after seeing all these things, is in basically utter turmoil for everybody except it seems like our head coach, Kirk Ferentz. So we're here to break it down for you guys, and we brought Kurt on. He covers the University of Nevada Wolfpack, so we're happy to have him on. And so, Kurt, if you don't mind, just kind of, telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got to be in this position.
Try not to be too long-winded, but been in TV for the past 7 years. Started back home in Seattle, went to Montana for a couple of years, and I've been here in Reno for the past 4+ years. So this will be my 5th year covering Wolfpack football in the fall. So seen some pretty bad teams, seen some teams that have made bowl games. So this year, who knows? It's a lot of things happening for the team this year. So it'll be interesting to see what the season looks like. But that's kind of why I'm somewhat qualified to talk about the silver and blue here on this podcast.
We're absolutely happy to have you. Dill is our maestro when it comes to finding our correspondents to join us every week and help us break down the teams. So shout out to you, Dill, for reaching out to Kurt. And thank you so much, Kurt, for joining us. I'm on East Coast. The guys are over in Central Time and you're in Pacific. So we're really spanning across the entire United States here on this one.
Totally happy to be here and happy to contribute any way I can. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Well, we can get right into it. So obviously this game this Saturday is a night game in Kinnick. They'll be hosting the 1-2 Nevada Wolfpack. I'll be honest, I was looking at the team and I noticed in Kirk's presser that he mentioned that, it's the team that that we're going to be hosting in Nevada. They have a Nick Cox, 6'9" quarterback. We can start there if you'd like, Kirk, but we'd like to learn a little bit more about the Nevada Wolfpack here.
Man, I mean, there is a lot to digest. This is a season where you have a brand new head coach, and Wilson. He was, I think he was co-DC, but the linebacker coach at Oregon. So he came down here to Nevada. He's in his first year. Brand new coaching staff, pretty much, except for the running back coach. They retained him, but there's a lot of new faces, a lot of transfers, walk-on guys who came from Oregon who are now on scholarship here at Nevada. Inexperience at certain levels of the team for sure. But I mean, running back, they have some experience there. Quarterback, there's some experience. The defensive line, the secondary. But if you look at kind of the rest of the team as a whole, inexperience doesn't mean they can't play, but it's just a matter of we got to wait and see what this team is made of. Because so far through 3 games, we've seen some extreme highs, we've seen some extreme lows, and it's just such a small sample size. So we'll see what happens. It's definitely going to be a big test. Probably the biggest test of the season, honestly, for the Wolfpack against Iowa.
So what do you think of the strength of the team is? I know you mentioned a lot of transfers, a lot of people coming in and leaving, a lot of moving parts. Would you say it's more on the offense, the defense, the special teams? Where do you see their strength coming from?
Yeah, I think the strongest position is honestly probably special teams. Their kicker, Brandon Talton, he's one of the best in the country for sure. If I had to select a specific position group, I'd probably say the secondary. They have a safety, Bentley Sanders, a transfer from University of South Florida. He has 6 turnovers through the first 3 games. And I believe that I'd have to look at the number, but through the first 3 games, at one point, they were plus 11 in turnover margin. They had turned over the opposing team 11 times and hadn't turned the ball over yet. Now, that did happen later on in the game against Incarnate Word. So I believe they're plus 9 on the season in turnover margin, but the back end definitely has some veteran guys. Bentley Sanders is a player for sure. Tyson Williams, their other safety, is really, really good. They're missing out on their other starting safety, JoJo Claiborne. He tore up his knee, so he's out. But they play 5 defensive backs. They're all upperclassmen. That's probably the strongest part of the group, and it's definitely shown given their turnover margin, their ability to get to the ball and create havoc in that regard. But the offense, there's a lot to be desired on the offense.
For everybody listening to at home, you probably looked at the box score and saw that they got shredded apart on defense last week in the secondary. Don't take these guys for granted. I think that they just had one bad week. I don't think that Iowa's going to be able to shred them like Incarnate Word did. But just know that they do have a lot of experienced guys in their backfield to watch out for.
Yeah, and just hearing Kurt talk about that a little bit, I mean, we have a quarterback already that's turnover prone, so hearing about an experienced secondary and having Spencer Petras at the helm, that doesn't make me feel good about Saturday. So there's going to be a lot of these had.
And it doesn't really line up very well with what we have going on at the receiver position either, because obviously we're pretty banged up at the receiver position. I do need to correct myself. They are 2-1, not 1-2, excuse me. And the quarterback is Nate Cox. So I apologize about misspeaking in my opening monologue there, you guys. But yeah, one thing I remember talking to Bo about before the episode was I was like, hey, have you seen their quarterback? He's kind of mobile. He's a little bit mobile. It looks like he wants to throw the ball, but I saw him run for first downs, and I was like so worried about him because, well, 1, he has really long strides, but 2, I feel like he might get hurt. He's so long. Obviously, that hasn't been an issue.
Yeah, he's 6'9", so I believe that he is the tallest position player in the entire country. I think there might be a couple left tackle somewhere that might be in that 6'9", 6'10" range, but it's definitely a weird quarterback position. And one of the things that stands out too is Nevada week by week doesn't name a starting quarterback. So you guys will figure out who the starter is when everyone else does, when they take the field for the first time. Talking to Ken Wilson in the past, he said it's whoever practices the best throughout the course of the week. And the first 2 games, Shane Illingworth had been the starter, the transfer from Oklahoma State. And his issue has been hanging onto the football. Like when they snap the ball, he drops it. And Coach Wilson's like, we got to get rid of that. They had 4 botched snaps in the first 2 games. And so that's why Cox's been getting a lot of the reps recently, is because he's able to hang on to the freaking snap. It's something that you just take for granted, the guy hanging onto the ball. But yeah, Nate Cox definitely has a different dimension that he adds. Long strides, likes to run the ball. I think they move the ball better with him in there. But in my opinion, he's not a very gifted passer. And a lot of the guys that they brought in from the receiver position, I should backtrack a little bit. They lost their top 6 receivers from last year to either graduation or the transfer portal. So a lot of the guys that they have right now are inexperienced guys that have either risen up the depth chart or they've tried to plug and play guys from the transfer portal. These are guys that have inexperience, and there are a lot of blocking wide receivers for the running game. So yeah, Nate Cox threw for more than 300 yards last week, but in my opinion, it wasn't very efficient. And before then, in those first 2 games, Cox and Illingworth combined for, I think it was like 222 passing yards through 2 games. And Nevada hasn't played any big names either. Texas State, Incarnate Word, which is number 8 in the FCS, but still an FCS school, and then New Mexico State. So they should be able to move the ball, and they just haven't.
Rob, does that sound like anybody familiar to you?
Well, I don't know, Kurt. So this is super huge, like dominating sort of the local news cycle is the Hawkeyes, their inability to move the ball on offense. We're ranked 131st, I think, out of all FBS teams, which in my time covering the Hawks, which isn't a long time, only about 5 or 6 years here, but it's the worst I've ever seen. And I don't know, you guys can probably speak for yourselves that, I know you guys have grown up and, with the Hawkeyes. And so, but we all agree, like it's one of the worst. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had trouble moving the ball. Despite the slow start, I think starting quarterback Spencer Petras, despite his lack of ability at the quarterback position, even in the last, I think it was, 7 or 8 games, he's got 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions.
Last 9 games.
9 games. So
what's wrong with that? Why not continue starting him?
Well, so but Kirk Ferentz is sticking with him. We found out early on in the week, which I hate. I wish he would have just been like, we're going to go with whoever we feel is best in the moment. And then at least we would have had all week to maybe think that he'll be making the right decision. But now we know that he's making the wrong decision, ahead of time.
Gives us plenty of time to stew on it, right?
I'm getting to a question though. So Kurt, because we have just been bashing him pretty much all week. But Kirk, no, my question is, in Nevada, like, is this? I don't think this is really a national story. This is like what's going on in Central Iowa. But for you guys, what is the outlook? From your point of view.
I mean, I think a lot of people, like you were mentioning, they don't necessarily know much about Iowa Hawkeye football. I think that a lot of people just look at the schedule and realize it's an away game, going to be a crazy environment. Stadium's going to be packed. It's a Power 5 school. Nevada's had success against Power 5 schools in the past. They beat Cal last year. 2019, it's escaping me. It'll come to me. 2018, they beat Oregon State. And then 2019, they beat Purdue. So they have experience playing Power 5 schools and having success against those programs. But I mean, like, historically, Iowa's been a great program. So I don't know what to make of this year's team. I'm obviously going to default to you guys on that. But I think that just looking at Nevada's schedule on paper, this should be the biggest test, biggest environment, most hostile environment, kind of highest stakes for sure. And if you look at the point spread, Nevada is favored, or I should say Iowa is favored by 23 points. So I think that also shows that this will be Nevada's biggest test of the season. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. So I'd like to get into, some key players for the Wolfpack. Obviously we talked about, a few of them earlier, but who do you expect? Because our defense is basically what we're hanging our hat on this year, it seems like so far. And so I think we're pretty decent in our secondary. I think if you were going to rank where we're best at, I think our secondary would be first, in my opinion, then linebackers, then D-line, which means that, this could be an opportunity to possibly run the ball, if the pass isn't there. So I'd like to just, and, I will say that also Iowa has had problems with read option type of plays before in the past. I'm thinking like Colorado State game last year, things like that. So I wonder, from your perspective, Kurt, if there's any sort of key players that you look to have a standout game on the Nevada side.
Oh, man, I mean, to be totally honest, I don't know if anyone's going to have an impact game for Nevada. I think that they're just so overmatched from a talent standpoint, and big Midwest boys that control the line of scrimmage. I mean, I think we all know what Big Ten football is all about. And so Nevada likes to run the football. And so they have Toa Taua and Devontae Lee. Those are their two heavy hitters from the running back position. And Toa's had a great start to the season, running for over 100 yards in a couple games so far. But just because they're committed to the run and they've had success against these smaller programs doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have success this week. So it's their identity. It's where they have experience. It's where they have talent. I just don't know if it's going to work out against the physicality and the size of a line or linebackers as well in the Big Ten. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see how long they stay committed to the running game. But as I mentioned too, if Nate Cox gets some time, to play the game, first of all, because we don't know if he's going to start until, the teams roll out on Saturday. If he starts or if he has any sort of extended playing time, he definitely adds a different dynamic with his legs. They definitely run some RPO stuff with him. If Illingworth's in there, he doesn't run the ball. So I could see maybe if they see an edge with, the running game and mixing some things up between running backs and receivers. And they also have a wide receiver, Jamal Bell, who runs some fly sweep type stuff. And then the addition of Nate Cox and what he can provide in the running game. If they stay committed to that and they're having success there, I don't see why they would deviate from it. But at the same time, if that gets put to rest early on, Nevada's going to have a really hard time moving the football because they're not much of a passing team.
Honestly, it sounds a lot like Iowa's offense too. Like they try to pound the rock and then from there get the play action to, set up the pass. So how do they use the running backs? I know you said Totoa and Devontae Lee both kind of split carries. It looks like Devontae Lee has a little bit less season yards. They use him more in like short yardage or like goal line packages then, or how do they differentiate the two?
Yeah, I mean, the guy who's going to get the most of the carries is going to be Toa for sure. I'm just looking at the numbers right now. He's got 61 attempts on the season. Devontae has 31. And then they have 27 rushes, or 26, I should say, from Nate Cox. Toa's kind of like the every down back for sure, but he's also like the kind of like scat back receiver type guy. In the past, they have run wildcat stuff with Devontae Lee, but I don't think that this coaching staff has done that. I don't think I've seen it in the first 3 games. So Devontae Lee is definitely your short yardage guy. Got to get a touchdown from a yard out or 2 yards out. Toa is going to be the guy that gets the majority of the carries and kind of that change of pace back as well. One guy, they're trying to establish him. I don't know how much of a role he's going to have, but if you're an Outcast fan, Big Boy's son is on the team. His name's Cross Patton.
Damn, did not know that. Awesome.
He's like their little third down back. He catches some passes. He's 5'8", 150 though. So he's not very big, but
he's not a big boy. He's a little boy.
Short king.
And to put that in perspective, Totua, he's 5'9", 218, which I thought was pretty big for running back. I was like, oh, he's a beefy boy. But then you look at Devontae Lee, 5'9", 230. He's got 10 pounds on him. So yeah, I can definitely see why they would use Devontae Lee in there. That reminds me of sort of like a Maurice Jones-Drew type running back, just like a little cannonball.
Just a pinball.
Yeah, the short bruiser. But yeah, Kurt, that was one thing I noticed in my travels trying to find you and recruit you onto the podcast was I saw an absolute truck stick by one of your running backs, and I wanted to say it was Toa this past week. Was that versus Incarnate Ward, or do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think was it the one where Toa was coming toward, I mean, it'd be difficult to see if you weren't actually on the field, but like coming toward my camera there on the left side,
yes.
Took down, barely got across the goal line.
Yep.
Yeah. So Toa and Devontae Lee, I mean, they are not afraid of contact. They're going to be physical and they're definitely durable. But again, it's just a matter of how many yards are they going to pick up? How much yards after contact are they going to pick up? How committed is the coaching staff to the running game if they're not getting those yards?
Right.
So they have the skill, they have the talent. It's just a matter of if it can match what Iowa has there in their front seven.
And I was going to say, so speaking of it, I know you touched on it a little bit, but just up front in the trenches, tell me a little bit about the offensive line. What kind of size are we looking at? How do you think they'll be able to match up against a Big Ten defensive line that, for the most part across the board, I'd say averages anywhere from, 6'4" to 6'6" and about 300 pounds apiece.
Yeah, I think the majority of football games are definitely one in the trenches for sure. And there's a lot of unknowns on that Nevada offensive line. Their best offensive lineman is out for the season, Aaron Frost. So he hasn't been available. I actually saw him in crutches and a cast on his, or I should say a brace on his left knee last week at the game. So yeah, he's unavailable. And then they're starting left guard. We haven't gotten an update from the team, but the guy they had started at left guard, Zach Welch, he didn't play last week. And so they've been mixing guys in there. There's a handful of guys from Power 5 levels who have come down and earned scholarships, but aren't in the rotation for whatever reason. But it's a smaller offensive line. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a big physical offensive line. And I also wouldn't say that because they're not so big and physical, they can get away with it with athleticism, because they don't really do a whole lot of tosses or sweeps or anything like that, where you get a guard to pull or a tight end to come on over. So in my opinion, I don't know much about Iowa's defensive line, but I mean, it's one of those things where if I look at Nevada, coming off the bus, I'm not blown away. They're not big, they're not, and they're not overly experienced and skilled. So I think that if Nevada is going to have success, that offensive line is going to have to play massive in this game. And again, don't know much of anything about the Iowa defensive line, but that's something that Iowa, in my opinion, should probably be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, just kind of so then Kurt as well, that Iowa defensive line, it does have a couple injuries and whatnot, but it's still probably 10 to 11 guys deep. So that's kind of why I asked about that offensive line. I don't know. We noticed it in the South Dakota State game, week 1, where you see their offensive line wear down a little bit throughout the game. But that being said, they had quite a bit of size. Those big South Dakota boys, they were all, anywhere from 6'4" to 6'5", matched up pretty well physical size wise. So that's why I was curious about that. So, definitely sounds like that might be a challenge for a ever changing offensive line for Nevada.
I know they're not in the Pac-12. And sorry to cut you off here. I know they're not in the Pac-12. They play out west, but do they run a hurry-up offense, or do they huddle at all? What does the tempo look like there too?
So for the most part, it's been really traditional. But I know that last week's practice, they were definitely honing in on, hey, we got to pick up the pace for sure, take advantage of these things. And I don't know how much of the Chip Kelly, Mark Helfrich days have really resonated with the coaches that were on Oregon staff that are here at Nevada. But I know for just being at practice, there was definitely an emphasis on kind of hurry up tempo, getting guys off, getting guys on, making sure that you guys, first of all, have 11 on the field, but also make sure that in these certain packages that everyone's good to go. So I haven't seen it personally in terms of the speed and the hurry up and getting a bunch of plays in. But at the same time, I know that they have been working on it. It's just a matter of, are they going to implement it this week? Is it something that they're working toward just to work on it? Or if there's a plan down the road to use it, or like I said, even if it's going to be happening this Saturday. So hasn't happened yet. Will it happen? We'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah, I think Iowa's played a couple teams, at least the last couple of years, who have run a little bit more up the tempo. And I think that's really affected the defense because the offense can't stay on the field. Wears the defense down. And then towards the end of the game, obviously you see a lot more of our guys just, again, wearing down and causing bigger plays to happen. So
right.
If Nevada can go through, honestly, if they're not as good as what we kind of think they are, and they're able to get 3 and outs or stops, even if it takes 8 plays, get our offense back out on there on the field, get them a little bit more confidence. That may be a big time booster and a lot more time for the offense to be able to roll and start to roll before moving into Big Ten play.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. And so I think we'll kind of roll into the next few segments here. But before we do that, Kurt, your sports, broadcaster for the ABC affiliate there in Nevada, I want to get your thoughts in general on maybe some areas of strength that you could see for the Nevada Wolfpack this Saturday, and maybe some areas of concern.
I think quarterback is a big concern because they haven't gotten a ton out of the position the first 3 weeks. And you always hear the cliche, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterback. And I can't say that they don't get anything out of the position, but it's one of those things where if you're a quarterback and you're not throwing the ball, there's definitely an issue there. Wide receiver, like I mentioned, there's just inexperience there. And we've seen a lot of blocking from them, but not a whole lot of catching. In terms of other strengths, there's certain guys at certain positions that are good players, but in terms of a whole position group that's really well-rounded, I really think it's special teams and secondary. They have one really, really good player on the defensive line, Dom Peterson. He's really short, about 5'11", 6 foot, but he's a beefy kid. Plays nose tackle, plays defensive tackle, gets moved to defensive end. If Nevada's going to have any success, generating a pass rush, plugging up the holes for Iowa's running game, Don Peterson's going to have a big game for sure. But inexperience at the linebacker level for sure. Inexperience on the offensive line. So, I mean, we're 3 games in, and I've seen the games, and I've watched every second of it, been to practice, talked to all the coaches on the coaching staff, and there's still a ton of unknowns. It's just like, what are we going to get from these guys? We see the talent at times, it flashes. We see the trajectory, but at the same time, a lot of unproven guys. It's such a small sample size. I'm still waiting to figure out what happens.
Well, it's so early too, right? We can all sit here and hammer down on both teams, right? But of course, we only have a small sample size this early. Another thing for us too is that Iowa doesn't start a whole lot of new guys. We had a ton of starters return, but with the amount of injuries that we've started to kind of accumulate, we're going to start seeing quite a few new guys in the D line and in the secondary as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Iowa plays really on both sides of the field with some young guys coming in.
Also, Kurt, one thing you did mention there is you talked about that old adage where, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you really don't have none. I will disagree with that, because I would say having 2 quarterbacks is better than having 0, like the University of Iowa has. So,
no, I think it's all relative too. I mean, expectations might be a little bit different. If you guys say quarterback, maybe they're better than Nevada. I don't know.
It's funny.
I'm just still better. I'm still better. Don't listen to me.
Well, it's funny. Obviously, you talk about University of Nevada, University of Iowa. Obviously, their football programs are sort of people. You could say that they would be on 2 different tiers, but what it sounds like to me, your areas of strengths and concerns are very similar to the concerns that we have as well. And so it'll be interesting to see, how they match up. One thing I will say, obviously, you guys have been able to put points on the board, and only 1 touchdown is all it took to beat us in the past few weeks. So although we have, in my opinion, an elite defense, my opinion, an elite special teams unit, which will make it tough for points to come by. But if you can imagine, if you can break a big play, something like that, really, unless we can move the ball on offense, I think that's really all it takes. Did I freeze up there?
You froze up a little bit there, bud.
Did I get my point across?
I'd say most of it.
Yeah, I'd say you got most of it across there, Rob. So one other cool thing that, before we dive too much into anything else, that I wanted to bring up and hear your thoughts on, Kurt, was obviously former Hawkeye Jay Norvell was the previous coach there at Nevada, and obviously no longer with the program, took a job at Colorado State. I guess how much of what he brought to the program is carried over, or, just tell me a little bit about, your opinion of him, if you will, from your time covering Nevada.
Totally. First of all, Jay Norvell, one of the best people I've ever met. Always gave us the time of day. Super nice guy. Came into the studio, sat down with me one-on-one. Amazing guy. I don't have anything negative to say about him for sure. They tripled his salary at Colorado State. So I think that was probably the biggest reason why he left Nevada. That's one of the biggest issues for Nevada, is they just don't have a big budget to work with. So it's kind of a stepping stone for people. They come here, they have success, they move on to bigger and better jobs. Totally get it, especially too when you're tripling people's salaries, money talks. In terms of personnel and scheme and that type of deal, I would say that, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but there are a handful of really talented guys that Norvell recruited that are still here at Nevada. There are also a handful of guys that left with Norvell over to Colorado State. And that was, like I said, the entire coaching staff, except for Nevada's running back coach, I believe, left for Colorado State or, went elsewhere. But the only guy that they retained from his staff, I believe, was Vaitawa, who is Toatawa's older brother. He's the running back coach there. And again, there's a lot of guys on the roster that were Norvell recruits that are really good players that stuck around, but they lost a lot of talent too. So there's still a mix of, I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if it's, these intangibles, these lessons that Norvell would have taught anybody. I'm sure that that is instilled to a certain extent. But at the same time, I think that a lot of the guys here, we've completely moved on, completely new coaching staff. I don't know what the standards are, if they're higher or whatever the case may be. But a lot of the people that are still here in town on the team have kind of just like pushed this aside and, okay, you know, we're not with Norvell. We like what Coach Wilson brings to the table. We like the approach. We like this new staff. So yeah, I don't know how much of an imprint that he left that you can still see, but at the same time, I have nothing bad to say about Coach Norvell. And one of the best things in this community is Colorado State comes here to Reno in about a month or so. So that's going to be a crazy game, because I know there are a lot of people who like Norvell, but of course, if you like a guy and they have success here, made it to a few bowl games in a row, you're also going to be pretty annoyed that he's not still here.
So that being said, too, how big is the Nevada school there in the community? I mean, do they have big time showings for the games too? I mean, is it a packed house on Saturdays?
No. It's a major problem. We just hired a new athletic director. I think she was like the associate athletic director over at LSU, and she came into the station and she was talking with us, and she was like, we have a lot of work to do when it comes to back in the stands and making sure that there's a big following and get people invested in the game. And Reno's not a college town. You have Lake Tahoe that's like 30 minutes away, depending on what area of the lake you want to go to. You obviously have gambling. There's a ton of things to do here in town. So the Wolfpack is definitely not toward the top of the totem pole. People in the past have gotten up for men's basketball. That's kind of the big thing in the area. When Eric Musselman was here and they had a ton of success. 2018, my first year here, the school, I believe, was number 6 in the country for men's basketball that season. So if anything, it's a men's basketball kind of community and area. It's not to say that they don't get support. It's just they don't get as much support as they should, given how much success Jay Norvell had here and how much success the football team had here. I mean, you go to a bowl game, off the top of my head, it was 4 years in a row. You should support your football program, and people here just don't do that for whatever reason.
Gotcha. Well, I hope that I hope to see a lot of Nevada fans in the stands on Saturday. I guess with that, Kurt, unless there's any other thoughts, we can roll right into the next few segments. We have Dylan's Keys to Victory, of course, which is led by our own Dylan Pond to tell us, the Hawkeye listener, you know, what is it that we need to do to come away with a win? I think we're all looking forward to that, Dill, especially after this last week. And then, of course, we'll get into some predictions. What I usually do, Kurt, I kind of read off, you know, where the line is, you know, for the degenerates out there, so we can all, and then we all kind of give our prediction. And then one thing that I think is fun that we like to do is we all kind of give out our hot takes for the game. So we'll give you some time to think of, you know, a hot take for you. And then we'll kind of let Dill take it away, but you ready to roll?
All right. I sure am. And first of all, listeners, I would just like to apologize for my piss poor attitude here the past week. I've been a little grumpy since this Iowa State lost. You know, it's been 6 years since I had to deal with that. And I still remember 2014 well, when Iowa lost to them at Kinnick. So, or what was it? Yeah, 2014 wasn't it? It's been a while. Long story short. So, yeah, I wasn't too thrilled about that, but here we are. We're on to Cincinnati, so to speak. We're on to Nevada. So, all right, keys to victory. Offensively. Anything. Just anything. Anything. Give us something, and I think we can win this game. Defensively, you know, we hear a little bit about that run game. I think if you shut this run game down and make Nevada beat you through the air, we're going to have a great time. I think we got a ton of ball hawks in that secondary. Scary Terry Roberts has been, you know, making the most of Jamari Harris being now we know out for the season. So, you know, obviously hate to see that for the kid, but, you know, Terry Roberts making the most of his opportunity and playing himself into, you know, potentially being a D1 NFL draft pick. So awesome to see there. And I think, you know, obviously number 1 linebacking core in the nation for a reason. We'll be just fine there. And with the defensive line being as deep as they are, you know, those guys just doing what they're doing and creating turnovers. I think that's one thing we haven't seen enough of. And so another part of that is creating turnovers as well. And, you know, if we make Nevada throw the ball, those ball hawks are going to have a day. So let's go there. And then special teams wise, It'd be really easy to say Torrey Taylor needs to have a hell of a game, but truth be told, I don't want to see him. I really don't. I don't want to see him punt once this week. I want to see Iowa just, blow the Wolfpack out. Whether that's going to happen or not, obviously, will remain to be seen. So I'm going to say our key to victory on the special teams is going to be Mr. Aaron Blom. So obviously, he got thrown into just a shitty situation there at the end of the Iowa State game where, I don't think anybody thought Iowa was going to move the ball whatsoever, and Spencer Petras put him in position to kick a 48-yard field goal to tie the game. Not a true freshman kicker, but a redshirt freshman, right? So redshirt freshman kicker in the pouring rain, you were just setting that kid up to fail and, missed wide left. One thing I loved about this Hawkeye team where, you heard the boos coming from the crowd and obviously, frustrated, I think, with the situation of that offense more than anything, but you hear the boos coming down from the crowd and you see, I think it was Sam Laporta and Luke Lachey and a few others immediately just run out there and hug that kicker. Mm-hmm. When he misses a kick in that situation, that almost brings a football tear to the eye right there, right? I mean, it just goes to show you how close that team is. And wanted to point that out as well, because that was just such a cool thing to see. And, in our reaction podcast Sunday, we didn't talk about anything positive. So I wanted to throw that out there as well. And, seeing how together, God damn, I sound like an Iowa State fan from last year, but seeing how together, that team was, despite going through that adversity of losing to a rival on your home turf, it was cool to see. And so, that gives me a lot of confidence coming into this game, which, I think we can just roll right into predictions then, unless we wanted to say some more specifics, because I think Iowa's going to roll. I think they're going to come back, and poor Nevada's kind of that, team in the way, right? The guys are pissed off. They're ready to rock. I see Iowa's favored 23 with that over under at 39. And, we know Kurt's somewhat close to Vegas, so he's probably in there making the odds and he knows what's going on and he's just not letting us in on just quite everything. So I get it. I see what you're doing there, but no, seriously though, I see this game, in like a 27-3 kind of game where, I think they're still going to leave a little sour taste in the mouth of some of the fans, but I actually see Spencer Petras, because he's going to be the starter. I see him having a somewhat decent game. Now, is that what I want to see the rest of the season? No, not necessarily, but I see him coming in and shutting up some of the haters, at least, a small percentage of the Iowa fan base, and having himself a good game. So, and I'll just roll with my hot take too there. I think Spencer Petras is going to have 3 touchdown passes this week.
Wow.
Tripling his last 9 games.
That's unbelievable. That would be it.
That was all in one. That was keys to victory.
Loved it.
That was a hot take and my prediction. There you go, guys.
Hey, cheers to you, Dill, on that one.
I do what I can.
You really went after it, and I'm here to appreciate it. We're unofficially sponsored by DraftKings, by the way. Thank you for announcing the odds, Dill. I was going to mention on the odds, obviously the over-under is 39, which is pretty low, especially for college football. Last week, the over-under in the Iowa State game was 40. The week before that at South Dakota State, the over-under was 41, I think. So it's gone down by 1 every week. That's just one more week for the media to see what we tried out on the field on offense. But I'm going to imagine that it's going to be under again. I think that we win 17-3 is final score. My hot take for the Iowa Hawkeyes, I want to see backup quarterback Alex Padilla have a series to himself. So I'm going to put that out into the universe. I think that it's I was talking to some folks earlier this week. Obviously, quarterback controversy is big news. We're going to be starting Spencer Petras. In my opinion, I think Alex Padilla needs to have – I think that people are going to be upset if they don't see him.
Oh, God. I was going to say, if Spencer Petras comes out there and, let's say, throws a pick early in the first quarter or something of the sort, it's going to get testy quick, especially with all those Iowans drinking starting at, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and with that kickoff time being at 6:35. That just can't be good for anybody. So, yeah, I'm with you 100% there, Rob.
Kurt, we can pass it down to you, or Bo, do you want to go?
Go ahead, Kurt.
Oh boy, yeah. See if I can tackle all three of these points here in one breath. Let's see. Keys to victory, I think, is just kind of establishing the run for Nevada. It's one of the things that they've done all season long, and looking at the numbers, their running game, in terms of average yards per game, is close with their passing game. So if you can get something from the running game and be able to control the line of scrimmage, keep the Iowa offense off the field, unless it sounds like you might want Iowa's offense on the field. But if you get to a point where you can kind of just do what you've been trying to do all season, establish the run, do something you're comfortable with, you don't really have to go too crazy. I think that would help them out for sure. The offensive line is going to have to be huge. The running game is going to have to be huge. And another key too is just keep piling up those turnovers. They've been really good at getting interceptions, really good at causing some fumbles and then falling on those fumbles as well. So turnover, obviously, I think is going to be a massive advantage for Nevada if they can keep doing what they've done through the first 3 games, and then being able to run the football as well, just taking some pressure off whoever starts at quarterback. If I had a bold prediction, and it kind of or a hot take, I should say, that kind of just goes into my prediction, I think it's just Nevada cover. That's it. I mean, you're getting 23 points here, so I want them to cover. I don't want it to get embarrassing. So I think that that's my hot take prediction. I'll give Nevada a touchdown. I'll say maybe 10-20, 10-21, something like that. So yeah, I have Iowa winning the game, but yeah, I'll do 21-10 or 20-10 Iowa.
That's not honestly, I don't think that's a hot take, that taking the spread there. Iowa's offense again has proven that they really haven't been able to score or run the ball or move the ball for that matter. So you're going to have to come up with a spicier take than that.
Yeah.
Boy.
We need a hotter take. That's lukewarm at best.
Man, okay. Nevada has been so unbelievably predictable, though. I'm trying to think of crazy scenarios where, hey, if this goes right or this goes right. I personally don't think this is much of a hot take, but it also wouldn't surprise me if all their points come from their kicker. So they don't down. But at the same time, I don't see them, putting up crazy passing numbers. I don't see them putting up a ton of touchdowns. They kind of are what they are. And yeah, it's been a small sample size, but I'm trying. I'm thinking here, guys, but I really don't think that there's one that's like a scorching take or anything. We've kind of seen what they are, and they've kind of stuck to what they are. It's just a matter of, has it worked out or has it not worked out in the win and loss column?
See, and don't feel bad about that either, Kurt, because the guy that called you out, all he ever gives are lukewarm takes. So
yeah, unreal, whatever.
Yeah, let's see if he proves me wrong here.
Yeah, so I'll just go right into it then. I think the defense is going to score 2 touchdowns, whether that be a fumble recovery for a touchdown, safety, or touchdown or pick six. Sorry. So I think the offense is a little bit lukewarm again for the 3rd straight week. I think a lot of people see this as a coming out party for Iowa's offense. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately, even though I wish it would before we go to Piscataway next week. So I think Iowa's defense takes care of the game and shows that, hey, you can still rely on us to win out the ball game. So I have 24-3 Iowa. Sorry, Kurt. I don't know if Nevada can muster up more than 3 points. I'm with the other 2 guys here, but I think it's going to be a fun game nonetheless.
Well, that sounds great, guys. I don't know if you saw the tweet. That's just reminded me of it. That was a good hot take. But if my buddy sent me the tweet the other day, he's like, hey, I was getting 23 points against Nevada. That's only 10 safeties in a field goal. So I don't know if you saw that one, but
you're saying there's a chance. Wait, I took Iowa to cover, didn't I? I didn't even realize that. 27-3. Wow. God. Look at me. I'm positive.
Tough.
Yeah, tough.
Well, Kurt, it's been amazing having you. We just have a few minutes left, so I'd like to toss it to you. If you want to tell us where we can find you, what are the things going on in your world?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy summer. I've been working on the AAA baseball team in town for the Arizona Diamondbacks, just working on a partnership with them, turning out a bunch of features. But other than that, yeah, we're moving into the fall now. Wolfpack football is big. I think we don't really care much about the volleyball team or the soccer team, to be honest. So it's all Wolfpack football and stuff like that. I am trying to do a feature piece with Cross Patton and get Big Boy on there somehow. I think that would be something really fun, especially if we can get some Outcast licensing stuff figured out.
Yeah.
That's a story that you're not going to see a whole lot of places. So I'm trying to get that solidified. But other than that, yeah, just same shit, different day. Trying to grind. And you can follow me on Twitter if you guys want, at Kurt Schroeder TV, KurtSchroeder TV. So throw me a follow.
Yeah, man. We already followed you. So
okay, follow
very
back.
Cool.
And listeners out there, if you're interested in any of those AAA affiliates from Nevada, the University of Nevada, you can definitely follow Kurt, and he'll be able to put you on to the latest and greatest that's going on in Reno, Nevada. Thank you so much for joining us, Kurt. It's been amazing as always. Guys, we're going to go ahead and close this one out with a little Hawkeye victory polka, something we hope to hear on Saturday afternoon.
All righty, Hawks. First night game in Kinnick this year. I want to see you all drunk and loud, in the words of Chad Greenway.
And it's gold out. Don't forget to wear your gold.
Go Hawks.